Today, I do want to talk about Jesus. And for those of you that are not of a more Christian persuasion, I promise that I will have other talks about Hinduism and Buddhism, because we are open to any inspiration as long as it helps us have a better life now. Not how we will get someplace, but how can we live a better life now? For instance, this guy that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes said the kingdom of heaven is here and now, and it's here and now, not out someplace. But that didn't work well for selling indulgences, so a new emphasis was created. And that wasn't a religion, by the way, that was just people. You know how many of you, I just want to say one thing. People can misunderstand things and use terminology for their own benefit. But at the heart of every religion is a roadmap for us finding our way back to that origin, the origin of where we came from. The other thing is that when a lot of people used Jesus' word and said that he said, you know, the Father and I are one, the word in Aramaic could also equally be interpreted as the origin and I are one. Now that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? I'm one with where I came from. So, this is actually going to be a talk in 3 parts, and I've already given the first part of it first service. And that will be available, and we'll put it together in a package on YouTube. So first and second service. But and then I will finish up on Friday, Good Friday, because there is an ending. And actually that ending is so important because I believe we know how someone lived by the way they lay their body down. It reminds me of something that I put on my, I think my most recent faith lift that comes out on Wednesdays. And I used an example that I got from social media. And what I read was, you know, somebody can bump you and you'd say, you still spilled my coffee. No, they bumped you and you had coffee in your cup. When you're bumped, what comes out is what's in you. Yeah, so if vile stuff comes out, if stuff comes out of you, it's you. It's not the person that bumped you. And so I really am looking at this when I look at, I'm going to call him a gentleman, who knew that if he continued to speak his truth, there were political powers that wouldn't like it. I mean, he knew. And he continued to live his truth and speak from a very high place. And that's worth learning from. That will be Friday evening for the Good Friday service. Okay, I always thought it was like, why do we call it Good Friday? Good for who? Anyway. You know, like luck of the Irish? Really? I mean, really, don't we have some strange things that we just sort of throw out there? It's like, have you ever looked at that? Ask the Irish how lucky they were. Anyway, so very quickly, I will go through first service. Very quickly. First, what I'm looking at is how did Jesus live? What did he do so I could do the same, so that I could, yes, be human and so united with my origin that I could seem like a miracle worker. And yet he said, greater things than I have done, ye shall do also. Well, come on, high bar, but let's go for it. And one of the ways to do that is to do what he did. Number 1, he got a posse. Very first thing, got a posse. Which means people that will support you in being your greater self, even when you're going through tough stuff. There are I have a bunch of people that pray for me, and I call them when I need it. And the only ones I will call are not those ones that will awfulize with me. Yeah, and sin, yeah, you know, I want to go through something, not get stuck in it with a joint pity party. So he had posse. So I invite you to let the Holy Spirit reveal to you people that you can count on to see the highest in you when you're going through the lowest of times. Number 2, yes, he argued for his limitations, but he didn't get stuck with them. There was a time that he was told to do a miracle, and he says, I'm not ready yet. Okay, I'll just do it. And I want you to think about some of the inspirations that you've had because you have been, like you've got this download, you can do this, and you go, oh, I don't know. I should really take another class. Can I just have you do it? Or people should be doing that. How many of you go there? You see something happen in the world, somebody should do that. Somebody, like guess what? The human says, and the divine says, the origin and I are one. Hold my beer. Or Diet Coke for me. Hold my Diet Coke. Actually, I had 3 people. I was doing a workshop a long time ago, and I had a Diet Coke there, so I could. And somebody was like, "Whoa!" Like, would you rather me drink beer? Yes. Okay, fine. No, I like Diet Coke. At limited amounts. 3. He embraced outcasts. There was no one outside of his respect, not tolerance. Respect. Big difference. Inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. He hung out with women. No, at the time, he hung out with women with reputations. He talked to Samaritans. I mean, there was some bad stuff, according to others. He didn't other anybody. No one was outside the love of God. Therefore, no one was outside of his love, his respect, his inclusion, his embrace. So, now we'll begin with the lesson that I have prepared for this particular service. And that is, he didn't condemn himself, maybe split personality. Anyway, he didn't condemn himself even when other people thought he was wrong. He had his own mental, spiritual, moral compass based on his oneness with his origin, and he made his decisions off of that. For instance, there was a big bugaboo, really big bugaboo. He healed somebody. You'd go, yay! People should have been going, yay! He healed somebody. Yay! He hadn't walked. He's walking now. Yay! Wouldn't we all be excited? He did it on a Sunday. No, not a Sunday, a Sabbath. It would have been Saturday. He did it on the Sabbath. So all the attention was on what he did on the Sabbath, not that he healed somebody. And he just like, he didn't fall for it. What he said is, I'm just doing what my origin does. My origin loves, my origin heals. It heals through me. I'm not going to make myself wrong. And how many of us fall into trying to make ourselves smaller to fit in with what other people think, or what we think people think? How many of you do that around your family? I used to do that for a while. I didn't, I mean, come on. Do you know, I was a minister for at least 15 years before my family would acknowledge it. fact, I don't think my father ever did. I mean, they knew. My mother did. My siblings didn't. And so I would dummy down my faith. I would dummy down my beliefs to not be thought ill of. And he was just going around healing people. We all make mistakes. But what I also am very cognizant of is that if you turn over the mistake to that origin within, the Father within, the origin within. I say Father, Mother, God because I kind of like the balance of it. It sounds balanced. But if I turn things over to the origin, even though I think I have flubbed up, somehow that origin makes it okay. I'm getting better, but I've been a minister for almost 40 years in October. And I know I started when I was 12. I was, precocious. Anyway, I'd say for at least 38 years, I hardly ever did a class that I wasn't driving home and criticizing myself because I didn't do it right. I could have said this, I should have acknowledged that, I could have done this. And then what I would do is I'd say, you know what, I had a good intention, my motive was good. Do something good with this. Just take what I did, do something good with it. And people seem to think I did something good with it. And truly I can understand what Jesus would say when it's, no, it wasn't me. Because I saw all the ways I didn't do it right. But something right happened. We're all going to fall short of our own ambitions, and sometimes the greatest condemnation comes from us. Whoa, I could have smiled more. Ooh, I should have been more understanding. Ooh, I could have listened more. Ooh, I could have seen that signal. You know what? If your motivation was to do the best you could, let that motivation be the seed for the result, not your skill level. That's what I learned from Jesus. That's what I learned when I want to do what he did. The next part of this story that I want to talk about is how to make good stuff happen. So if you get over your condemnation of yourself, you can start letting good things happen. And there's one story told in all four Gospels. It's the only story that is consistent in all four Gospels, and it's the feeding of the 5,000. By the way, 5,000 was probably an Aramaic idiom for a whole bunch of people showed up. Too big to count. I mean, there's nobody there with a clicker. It wasn't Costco. Yes, we had 5,000 people come to. Oh, by the way, they only counted men, by the way. That was part of what happened. So 5,000 people and their relatives showed up. No, that's not what happened. A bunch of people showed up. And they were hungry. So how did he deal with this? It was moving on to a holy day, and he had gone up and saw people around him, and they had seen and heard about miracles, and they wanted to hear from him. And so what did he do was, first is he went up to the mountain and sat down. This is also a metaphor for no matter what's calling my attention. How many of you don't do this? How many of you, shiny thing, squirrel, ooh, this got my attention, I got to do this. Like, no, all these people want my attention. I'm going to go and spend some time in higher consciousness. I'm going to take a moment and go to higher consciousness. In the Bible, when the prophets went up the mountain, first of all, there weren't that many mountains, there were kind of hills. But anyway, I was there. There were hills. I mean, there were small hills. I mean, no Cascades or the Olympics. I mean, they were hills. Anyway, so they would go up the hill. What does that mean? They removed two things. The story is telling that they removed themselves from the distraction so they could raise in consciousness and contemplate God. So that's what he did. This is what's needed. I'm going to do this. Boy, that's difficult. It's difficult. But that's what he did, and that's what I want to do. So first, we get quiet. We touch, which is, I love it. This is like recognition, unification in our 5 steps of scientific prayer. And then here's the next step in our scientific prayer. He stated the desired outcome. I'm going to feed these people. We're going to feed these people. How many of you get to that place and you're kind of like, well, whatever. How many of you go there? Whatever. That's just whatever. If Jesus didn't do whatever, don't do whatever. Do you know that? I mean, he didn't go, whatever. Oh, you're blind, whatever. Whatever. Did you see how this. So if I want to follow him, not worship him, then once I'm here at this elevated state of consciousness, which isn't like, I don't want to sound like holy, I don't get no glow, but if I'm putting my attention on God, then I look to see what's needed in the world and I say, let there be. We're going to feed these people. Then his posse, the ones that are collected around him, this posse say, we got this one kid, and he's got some loaves and some fishes. Not going to go very far. Too many people spiritually bypass things by just saying, oh, it'll all work, and they don't take stock of what they've got. Take stock of what you got. I mean, that was in there. That's in the formula. Take stock of what you've got. Then he blesses what they had. Too many, not too many. In my past, like maybe yesterday, I would take stock and then I'd evaluate whether it's going to be enough for the miracle that I want. He didn't. He blessed it. Bless what you have. Because it's out of what you have that something can emerge. Sure enough, it did. He blessed it and started passing out stuff. And according to John, they gathered 12 baskets of food left over after everyone, the 5,000, had eaten. Jehovah Jireh. Jehovah, God, my provider. Are we willing to be provided for? Actually, I'm going to talk about this at our annual meeting. Jehovah Jireh really works in our congregation. Because I do take stock of what we've got, and oftentimes what we've got doesn't look like it's going to go around very well. And yet we bless it, and something happens. And we've been in the black for years and years and years and years, and yet about September I'm going, oof, looks like a red year. Bless it, and something happens. Jehovah Jireh. God is our provider. I want to just insert this because I think it's pretty important. This comes from Emma Curtis Hopkins. There is no God except the one you imagine, because you get exactly what you imagine God to be. So if you imagine God to be your provider, your support, your lover, your inspiration, your protection, that's what you'll get. If you imagine God to be judgmental and keeping track of everything you do and making a list and checking it twice, then that's the God you'll have. If you imagine God to have a whole narrow way of getting back to it, then, and most everyone, including you, is outside that narrow range, then what you will have is a God that's not on your side. I'm encouraging you to have a God that's on your side. On your side. The next idea that I want to leave you with is do I want to do that one? Yeah, I will do it really quickly. I want you to imagine that the whole story, that all the people in this mystery play that's being played out in John, all of those people are like aspects of ourself. There are aspects of ourself that doubt. There are aspects of ourself that are really legalistic. Did you pray the right way? Did you use the right words? How many of you are afraid to pray sometimes because you're afraid you won't see it in the right way? Anybody? Just a few? I see practitioners raising their hands. You know, that's the legalism. That was the Pharisees and the Sadducees. There was the doubters. There were the ones that wanted to believe. There's the ones that believed when all was going right, but then, things get tough and they just vanish. More on that on Friday. There's the ones that say, yeah, but don't put me in an uncomfortable position. And then there is Jesus, who is moving into the Christ, and that's all of us as well. All of us are moving into the Christ. The last thing I want to leave you with is that for me, if I am truly wanting to live out this way of living so that I can be all that I can be, I really want to not worship Joshua ben Joseph, which would have probably been his name, Joshua ben Joseph. There aren't a lot of Jewish people named Jesus. Just saying. Joshua ben Joseph. Joshua, son of Joseph. I don't want to worship. I want to follow that person's instructions. And there were 2 instructions. I looked through the whole thing. In John, there was only 2 instructions. You know, all of these people that have, don't do this, you can't do that, you got to do this, and this is the way to do it, and this is biblical, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I only saw 2. Only 2 instructions. First one was, ask for what you want. Ask. Pray believing. Second one was, keep my commandment, and my only commandment is that you love one another. Let's take a deep breath. And so in the way, because he said, I am the way, my way is the way. In the way of this Joshua ben Joseph, what does your heart want? Allow yourself to declare it so. To declare it so. Ask believing. For God is our provider. That origin, that place from which we come, that emanates through us, is our provider. It is the great sustainer. Let's breathe that in. And then let one of the things we ask is to love and love and love and love. You might say something like, oh, sweet source within, remind me always to love and to love and to love and to love. Remind me always to extend and extend and extend my love, even to those people who have kept me out. even to those people who have made me other and somewhat suspect, and even to those people that I have created as other and made somewhat suspect. May love dissolve the boundaries. May love dissolve the separation. May love dissolve my belief in right and wrong. Lift me, lift me, lift me. And let me follow the way of a man who could know that he was the source of all, not the source, but one with the source of all good. Let me follow that way. And if these words resonate with your heart, simply within that heart, say yea and amen, and let it be. And so it has always been, and so it is.